This video was sponsored by CuriosityStream and my streaming service Nebula. What does the Apple brand stand for? Clean, timeless design, a fantastic, seamless user experience, a really inspiring retail presence, privacy, I really like that, and very soon, apparently, ads and lots of them. That's right, while Apple, the self-titled champion of user choice and privacy, dealt a significant blow to the business of ad giants, the company itself has simultaneously also had their own advertising revenue quietly grow almost tenfold in the last 3 to 4 years, with analysts predicting a continued rise to tens of billions of dollars in a few more years. And that would make them one of the largest ad tech companies in the world. At this point, the question is not whether Apple will become a major ad player. I mean, they're already bigger than platforms like Snapchat by revenue, for example. The question is just how far they'll go. So in this video, let's explore how Apple got into the ad business in the first place and where they might be going next. Apple and advertising inherently seem like an uneasy fit. For a company that spent decades building a brand on being premium and privacy-focused, consumers might actually believe that the company is inherently against ads. But that's not quite the case. To begin with, Apple, in the early days, specifically built out their operating systems in a way that allowed advertisers to track users across apps, just like Windows and Android. Initially, each app on an iPhone or an iPad had access to a unique device identifier, or a UDID, a shared ID that let advertisers connect what users did across many apps. Apple banned app access to UDID for ad targeting in 2012, but then a few months later, they introduced an alternative called IDFA, or Identity for Advertisers, yet another code, this time purpose-built for tracking users across apps. This IDFA, believe it or not, was initially presented as a privacy feature, because it could at least be reset or hidden, kind of like a cookie, so at least it wasn't permanent. But again, Apple, just like its competitors, built IDFA to be on by default, made it available to any app, and intentionally hid the option to turn it off behind multiple layers of confusing settings. This is an industry standard because Windows and Android pretty much does the same, and at the very least Apple didn't use this ID to track their users themselves. But again, they built this system specifically in a way for others to be able to do this tracking, and they only decided to make a big deal out of this last year. That's right, this pop-up that got everyone so riled up because it made tracking opt-in rather than opt-out, well, that's a change to a system that Apple themselves have designed and told app developers to use for almost a decade. So why were they okay with this in the past and then kind of changed their mind lately? Well, Apple of course won't tell, and maybe they just changed their mind or consumers became more privacy conscious or whatever, but I think there is a more compelling explanation. Most people probably don't remember this, but Apple tried to build a cross-app advertising business of their own from 2010 to 2016. iAd. This was a native ad platform built into iOS for iPhones and iPads that would place banner ads into a ton of participating apps based on user data that then opened interactive full-screen ads with location-based suggestions, direct purchases from retailers, downloads of apps from the App Store, etc. That's right, one of the last things that Steve Jobs introduced at Apple was a mobile ads platform, and he was very serious about its potential.
1 billion ad opportunities per day. This is a pretty serious opportunity.
Jobs was planning to place one ad every few minutes for users and extrapolated that they would get to 1 billion ad impressions per day pretty easily. 1 billion a day. Now, iAd didn't do nearly as much tracking as the competitors from Google and Facebook, which means that this was a more privacy-conscious alternative, I suppose, and it's also part of why the platform probably didn't succeed. But it's easy to see that Apple running an ad network of their own made it really difficult for them to shut down the tracking for their competitors, if for nothing else than for antitrust reasons. iAd was shut down in 2016, but instead of giving up on an ad business, Apple saw a chance for a reboot and developed a much more disruptive strategy. First, with the cross-device ad network gone, Apple could suddenly afford to become much more critical about how others treated privacy. Instead of just a few vague comments every now and then, the company decided to go on an all-out privacy crusade.
The fact is that an interconnected ecosystem of companies and data brokers, of purveyors of fake news and peddlers of division, of trackers and hucksters just looking to make a quick buck, is more present in our lives than it has ever been.
Tim Cook gave privacy-focused interviews to every major news network and gave talks at privacy conferences, while Apple started churning out commercial after commercial. Privacy went from a thing that Apple occasionally mentioned to a core selling point of the brand, and the timing was perfect. From around 2018 to today, the news has been full of Facebook's privacy scandals, fake news, election interference, GDPR with all of its cookie banners, etc. People suddenly cared, and Apple painted a clear picture. Other tech companies are out for your data and evil, but Apple is fighting for your privacy.
But at Apple, we believe that you should have a choice. App Tracking Transparency, a simple new feature that puts your data back in your control.
And while this massive PR campaign was built up, Apple also did a very clever thing in kind of redefining what the word privacy, at least according to them, means. So you might think that privacy means something like a lack of tracking and a lack of targeting or something like that, but Apple has a completely different pitch for it these days. First, Apple figured out that they can track users, but then anonymize their data by mixing it together with similar users and adding some randomness to form cohorts that can then be targeted with ads. This is called differential privacy, and Google does this to some extent too, by the way, and Apple basically says that with this tech, they can now do targeted advertising while still claiming to respect user privacy. Some privacy researchers doubt these claims, but there we go. And second, Apple also started saying that, you know what, first-party tracking, so for example, when Facebook tracks you in their own apps like Facebook, Instagram, or WhatsApp, that's kind of okay as long as there's some privacy policy somewhere. The users kind of expect that. But you know what is a problem? Third-party tracking. So for example, when a random app has a tracker from Facebook in it, that's problematic. This pop-up, the thing that generated all of the headlines, it only stops third-party tracking, but within the walled garden of any app developer, nothing has changed. And can you see where this is going with the walled garden and everything? Of course, within Apple's own ecosystem, the company can track you as much as they want, and the option to turn that tracking off is of course hidden behind many layers of settings again. No pop-up to be seen there. And given that Apple has spent its last 4 to 5 years massively expanding its own services ecosystem with Apple Music, TV, news, arcade, books, fitness, podcasts, maps, payments, and etc., that walled garden is now absolutely massive for Apple, and of course it also includes the operating system itself, as well as system-critical apps like the App Store or iMessage, which competitors will never have access to. This massive ecosystem gives Apple so much data and so much space to put their ads into that they never even have to look at what you do in a third-party app or get your data or place an ad anywhere else. They can build an advertising empire all within their own ecosystem. Apple already knows what apps you have downloaded, which services you are subscribed to through the App Store, what news you read, what shows you watch, what podcasts and music you listen to, which friends you text the most, what restaurants you search for on Maps, where you last left your car keys, what games you play on your phone and how often, etc. They have way more user data than most advertisers could ever dream of. Now, again, they say that they will anonymize your data and that they won't use sensitive information like your health data, for example. By the way, fun fact, Google says both of those things as well, so there's that. But anyway, even with those limitations, Apple has enough data to build an ad empire. And with a massively growing services ecosystem, they also have plenty of places to show those ads. Apple already does ads in their App Store and in the Apple News app, including for paid subscribers by the way, and also in the stock apps today. These are all based on your interest and your past activities across your phone by the way, aka they are targeted ads, and credible reports claim that Apple will roll out a lot more of these in the future. Apparently ads in Apple Maps have already been tested and are coming according to Bloomberg's Mark Gurman, who is rarely wrong, and others like Apple Books, podcasts and TV could be coming next too, as Teresi, the head of Apple's ad business, has been tasked with, quote, expanding the business significantly. Now, how far Apple will go will probably just depend on how much Apple users are willing to tolerate, but to be honest, since most people are very unwilling to switch ecosystems at this point, and since the alternative is Android, run by Google, the ad company, I think people will take quite a lot before things start breaking. So that's the brilliant strategy of Apple. They built this massive first-party ecosystem and better privacy tech that gives them all the tools that they need to build a huge ad business right within their own walled garden, all while claiming that user privacy wasn't even hurt by them. Meanwhile, they can also nuke third-party tracking, which not only makes them look like the heroes, but also cripples the ad business of most other advertisers whose lost business Apple will be more than happy to take. Now, you might think that Facebook and Google, the two giants that have built their entire business on third-party tracking, would be particularly angry at these changes, and while that is partially true, both companies have since come out with statements that basically say that on the long term, they think they might actually benefit from these changes. And I've made a whole video explaining how and why that you can watch exclusively on Nebula. I do one of these bonus videos pretty often now for people who want to go deeper into a topic than I cover here on YouTube, and if you hate advertising and being tracked, good news, Nebula does neither. Nebula is a video streaming service built and owned by some of YouTube's best creators, including Real Engineering, Polymatter, Not Just Bikes, Nothing But Tech, and more, and it hosts all of our regular videos ad-free and often early access, as well as tons of exclusive content from all of us. I, for example, have just released a brand new episode of Technorama a few days ago, where I go in depth into breaking down rotating wheel space stations, what their origins are in the real world, and how they are used in sci-fi films. Nebula helps us fund our businesses in a sustainable way, and it helps you get extra content from the creators that you already love. And of course, it's extremely affordable. With the CuriosityStream bundle, using my link to sign up, you can get both services for a single price of $15 for an entire year, which is less than some other services cost a month. And CuriosityStream is of course the best place to watch professional documentaries online. Whether you like history, science, nature, or space exploration, you get high-quality documentaries made by professional teams, and recently I finished watching Stephen Hawking's Favorite Places, a documentary narrated by the one and only, well, Stephen Hawking, obviously. It was predictably great. Check the bundle out at the link in the description or with the button that should be on screen now, and I'll see you in the next video.